tragedy in Tucson. Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords continues her fight to beat the odds, showing remarkable signs of life just 2 days after taking a bullet straight through the brain. This morning, investigators continue to uncover clues to the gunman's motives as the dark and disturbing past of a troubled young man comes to light. The weapon used in the shooting was once illegal, and now one congresswoman wants to outlaw it again. And America reacts online. The flurry of internet activity in the wake of this tragedy in Tucson.
This is an ABC News Facebook special, Tragedy in Tucson. Here's George Stephanopoulos.
And welcome to ABCNews.com as we team up again with Facebook this morning to report on this tragedy in Tucson. Here is the latest, what we know at this hour. 2 days since being shot in the head from close range, Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords remains in critical condition. She's fighting for her life, but I spoke with her chief surgeon this morning. He says even though she's still not out of the woods, she's holding her own and responding to simple commands. That's one of the encouraging signs. The other, there is no swelling yet in her brain. She is the only victim still in critical condition. The rest of the 14 injured are recovering in serious, fair, or good condition. As for the suspect, Jared Luffner, he's set to appear in federal court today. A former professor of the shooter says he'd been removed from his class because of bizarre behavior. Professor Ben McGee says he feared Luffner would bring a gun to class, and I spoke with the Sheriff Dubnik this morning. He says he is now convinced that Luffner acted alone. Later this morning, just under an hour, President Obama will hold a moment of silence for the victims at the White House on the White House South Lawn. The Supreme Court will start its session early to accommodate the moment of silence as well. We're also going to remember the heroes. Today we're learning more about the 3 brave men and 1 courageous woman who disarmed the shooter. 61-year-old grandmother Patricia Mace says she wrestled a magazine clip away from Luffner when he tried to reload. We're going to get to all that, but I want to start out with my colleague Dan Harris with the latest. Dan?
Across the state of Arizona, hundreds of people paying their respects to the victims of Saturday's shooting.
We need more than one ambulance. There's more than one person down.
The 911 calls give you a real taste of the madness.
The guy had a semi-automatic pistol. He went in, he just started firing, and then he ran.
Even the operators are losing their composure.
Is anybody injured? Did you say Gabrielle Giffords was hit? She's hit. Okay. I believe she's breathing. There's multiple people shot. Okay. Oh my God.
One caller, a man named Manuel Hernandez, explains that he's trying to provide information while helping the wounded.
Like I said, he shot. Okay. You okay, sir? We got help coming.
And this call from Sally Badger, desperately searching for her husband, Bill.
My husband just called me and told me he was shot. He went to the Gabrielle Giffords, whatever they were doing today, and I don't know where he is.
Your husband was shot?
That's what he said. He just called me, and then the phone went dead.
But Bill Badger survived the mayhem, a bullet grazing his scalp, and in an extraordinary act of heroism, he helped tackle the gunman, potentially preventing so many more deaths.
And when we pushed her, he just went right to the ground. There was no struggle or no fight. I had to do something. I just couldn't sit there and let this guy go by.
With Badger and 2 others restraining him, Patricia Mace sprang into action.
He was pulling a magazine out of his pants pocket with his left hand, and I was able to grab the magazine.
And then there's the story of Dorwin Stoddard.
This man, in an act of courage and love, pulled his wife down, jumped on top of her, and died as a result.
When he pulled her down, he fell on top of her. She thought her legs were hurting because he was kneeling on them, but she didn't realize she was shot and didn't realize she got shot. So she said he saved her life. He fell on top of her.
As for Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, her doctors are sounding increasingly optimistic, although cautiously so, pointing out that she is responding to simple commands, making a peace sign when her husband Mark asked her to hold up 2 fingers.
Overall, this is about as good as it's going to get.
It's incredible that she's doing so well. And George, we are now standing in the parking lot where the shooting took place. Police have now opened it up for the first time. This is the closest we've been able to get to the scene of the crime, which is literally right behind me. I don't know if you can see, there's a Safeway store right behind me. That is where Gabrielle Giffords was holding her Congress on Your Corner event on Saturday morning, and that is when allegedly Jared Lee Loeffler opened fire not only on the Congresswoman woman, but also on passers-by and on her constituents. And we should say that, as you mentioned, George, Mr. Loeffner is going to be in court today to be arraigned in a federal court, and this is interesting, in a federal court in Phoenix. Why not Tucson? Because this is where the shooting happened. Well, according to the local sheriff, all the judges here in Tucson decided they needed to recuse themselves because they are also upset and so angry, so hurt that Mr. Loeffner allegedly shot and killed their friend and colleague, Judge John Roll. George?
Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, Dan. Okay, thanks very much. You mentioned Gabrielle Gifford's condition. Well, I spoke with her surgeon, her chief surgeon, Dr. Michael Lamole, earlier this morning to get some perspective on her condition, and he seemed quite optimistic about how her recovery is going right now.
And I'm happy to say she's holding her own. That is to say, she's still following those simple commands for us. We also had CAT scans this morning that showed like the swelling is not getting any worse.
That's a big sign.
That's very important. We're still not out of the woods. Typically, the swelling can go through a period of evolution over 3 days or more. But every day that we get farther out, we're more and more encouraged.
Doctor is encouraged, of course. As he said, she's not out of the woods yet. There are many hurdles ahead, and he wouldn't make any prognosis on her chances for long-term recovery. But we did talk about our colleague Bob Woodruff, who, of course, had a remarkable, miraculous recovery from his injuries in Iraq. And, of course, we're all hoping for the same for Gabrielle Gifford.